Divorce is usually imagined as ending with big explosions, affairs, tragedy, arguments so loud they shake the house. But in the U.S., a surprising number of marriages fall apart over things so small. They sound like a joke. Some couples break up over an app. Some walk away because a pet is loved more than they are. Some sign divorce papers over a habit that seems harmless, the kind everyone shrugs at and says, it's probably fine. In modern life, social media, TikTok pets, and countless personal routines, these little things quietly pile up. And then one day, something very small becomes the final straw. This video features 31 real stories like that. Each one is a divorce reason that's hard to believe. And trust me, story number 31 is something no one sees coming. Story 1. Divorced. Because of loud TikTok at midnight. Bedrooms were meant for two very simple things, sleeping and saying, "I'll go to bed early tonight," then absolutely not doing that. But in this marriage, the bedroom slowly turned into a 24/7 TikTok theater. Lights off, blanket pulled up, and then, boom. A video blasts at a volume strong enough to wake the neighbors and possibly a few wandering spirits. Remix music, forced laughter, a stranger yelling at the screen about 5 habits that are secretly ruining your life. At first, it was just one video, then another, just one more. The algorithm was working harder than the husband ever did. Night after night, sleep disappeared. So did patience. Morning coffee stopped being strong enough. Headphones were always out of battery. In the end, they didn't divorce because of cheating. They divorced because an algorithm knew exactly what one of them liked, better than their spouse ever did. Story 2. Divorced. Because someone kept eating their partner's food. In every marriage, there is an unwritten agreement: save food is sacred. Touching it is a violation of the highest law. It started small. A cookie disappeared. A slice of pizza was no longer where it was supposed to be in the fridge. The mind tried to cope. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe I was just really hungry yesterday. Then it happened again and again. The refrigerator slowly became a place of suspicion. Someone started labeling food. Someone else started counting. The breaking point came on a very ordinary evening. The last piece, the one saved for after a long, exhausting day. And then, it was gone. All that remained was an empty container and a partner pretending to be innocent. They didn't divorce because of food. They divorced because of the feeling of being violated over and over until there was nothing left to swallow. Story 3. Divorced. Because of subscription addiction. It started with a single streaming service, then a music app, then a monthly snack box. It all sounded harmless, very modern. Very everyone does this. But slowly boxes began showing up at the front door. A lot of boxes, big boxes, small boxes. So many boxes that the delivery driver started looking at them like a distant relative. Inside the house, snacks formed small mountains. Subscription socks piled up enough for an entire soccer team. And for some reason, there was also a full apocalypse survival kit. The problem wasn't the stuff. The problem was the money. The bank account was bleeding quietly like a small cut no one noticed, until the credit card bill arrived, a number big enough to make both of them go silent for a very long time. The final conversation wasn't about love. It was about one question. When did you even sign up for this? In the end, she didn't cancel the subscriptions. She unsubscribed from the marriage. Story 4. Divorce. Because the pet was treated better than the human. At first, it was just a cute pet. Then it got its own food. Then its own vet. And at some point, no one remembers exactly when it had a spa schedule more consistent than the humans in the house. While the pet enjoyed mud baths, blow-dry sessions, and organic meals, the spouse reheated cold leftovers alone. Texts were answered late, but nail-trimming appointments for the pet never missed. People kept saying, "It's just an animal, don't be jealous." But this was never about jealousy. It was about realizing you ranked below a 4-legged creature on the love priority list. The breaking point came quietly. The moment he noticed every plan revolved around the pet, and he had been filed under, if there's time. They didn't divorce because of the pet. They divorced because love no longer had room to fit. Story 5. Divorce. Because of clapping when the plane landed. It all happened at 30,000 feet in a moment where everyone was supposed to breathe out and stay quiet. The plane landed safely. No incident, no drama. And then, applause. A proud round of clapping broke out as if the pilot had just landed on Mars. One person laughed out of the reflex, the other froze in secondhand embarrassment. Nearby eyes started to turn. That familiar feeling appeared. Everyone is looking at us. It only lasted a few seconds, but the feeling didn't. It followed them off the plane into the car and stayed in their head for a long time. Not because of the clapping, but because of the difference in how each person felt about a public moment. The breaking point wasn't on the flight. It came later when one person finally said, "I can't do this anymore." They didn't divorce because of clapping. They divorced because each person's ego was bigger than the love they had for each other. Story 6. Divorce, because he was secretly recorded and graded on housework. At first he just felt that something was off. Household chores were suddenly being reviewed with suspicious detail. A bowl placed slightly wrong. A glass not fully dry. Every small mistake was brought up again with unsettling precision. Then one day he found the camera. Small, well hidden, placed in a corner no one ever looks at. Not for security, not to watch the pet, but to keep score. From that moment on, every action at home felt like an exam. Washing dishes like a performance. Folding laundry like points were on the line. No one felt relaxed anymore. No one felt like themselves. The breaking point wasn't when the camera was taken down. It was the moment he realized trust had been removed a long time ago. They didn't divorce because of housework. They divorced because their marriage had turned into a reality show he never agreed to be part of. Story 7. Divorce. Because of texting only in emojis. At first, emojis were cute. A heart at the end of a sentence. A smiley instead of "I'm fine." Everything felt neat, modern, and time-saving. Very efficient, until it wasn't. Conversations started to look like a decoding chart. Did that smiley mean genuine happiness or quiet annoyance? Was the fire emoji a compliment or sarcasm? Did the waving hand mean "okay" or "I'm done talking"? No one really knew. Gradually, there were no more questions, no explanations. Just colorful symbols replacing real emotions. Every message opened the door to a new misunderstanding, then another piled on top. The breaking point came when a serious argument ended with 3 emojis. No apology, no explanation, just images. They didn't divorce because of emojis. They divorced because they realized symbols are convenient, but they can never replace real words from a real person. Story 8. Divorce because of the blanket war. At night, the bedroom was perfectly quiet. But under the blanket, a silent war was taking place. One person pulled, the other pulled back. No gunfire, no shouting. Just the cold creeping in minute by minute. Every morning, one person woke up rolled tight like a burrito. The other shivered, clutching a piece of blanket so small it couldn't even cover their dignity. At first, they laughed it off. Guess I moved around too much last night. Guess I slept too deeply. But every night was the same. Cold, tired, irritable. Broken sleep piled up into daytime resentment. Coffee couldn't fix it. A backup blanket didn't help either. The breaking point came on a sleepless night when they lay back to back, each guarding their share of the blanket like disputed territory. They didn't divorce because of the blanket. They divorced because they realized they were still sharing a bed, but they hadn't been truly together for a long time. Story 9. Divorce. Because of a crypto obsession. At first, it was just a curious conversation. Have you heard about Bitcoin? Then came Ethereum. Then coins with names that sounded like misnamed pets. Before long, every conversation circled back to charts. Dinner used to be about workdays, family, and small ordinary things. Now it turned into a market update. The candles were still lit, but the glow from the phone screen was brighter. Look at this chart. Hold on, don't eat yet. I need to check the 5-minute candle. Emotional space slowly got replaced by terminology. HODL, dip, moon. One person wanted to share feelings, the other wanted to share hypothetical profits. The breaking point came when an anniversary dinner turned into a mini blockchain seminar, complete with predictions and risk analysis. The food went cold. So did the conversation. They didn't divorce because of crypto. They divorced because in that marriage, blockchain won and quietly took love's seat. Story 10. Divorce. Because they never replaced the toilet paper roll. In marriage, there are things so small no one believes they could end a relationship. And then there's The empty toilet paper roll. The first time someone sighs. The second time someone replaces it themselves. The third time someone starts keeping score. The bare cardboard tube shows up again and again, like a silent message saying, "This isn't my job." Every trip to the bathroom comes with a small, quiet disappointment. No arguments, no raised voices, just the feeling that you're always the one cleaning up what someone else left behind. That feeling builds slowly, like water dripping on stone. Until one very ordinary moment when someone stands there, stares at the empty roll, and a thought clicks into place, perfectly clear: I'm done. They didn't divorce because of toilet paper. They divorced because they realized responsibility in that marriage had never been shared evenly. Story 11, divorce because of slow text replies. The message was simple. Are you home yet? The screen showed sent, then silence. 5 minutes passed, 10, 30. Time stretched in a strange, rubbery way. The worst part wasn't the lack of a reply. It was the green dot. The other person was online, present, phone in hand, just not responding. The brain went into overtime. Actually busy or ignoring me. They just forgot, right? That feeling of being brushed off slowly turned into suspicion, then irritation, then a full conversation that only existed in someone's head. Eventually, it exploded into a painfully ordinary argument. It's just a text. Exactly. And it says a lot. The breaking point wasn't about internet speed. It was about realizing you were no longer a priority, not even worth a short reply. They didn't divorce because of slow responses. They divorced because of the feeling of always coming second, even to a glowing screen. Story 12, divorce because they only spoke in movie quotes. When they first started dating, it was charming. Every reply was the perfect line at the perfect time. Smart, funny. The kind of person that makes you think, oh wow, this one's interesting. But then every conversation started to feel familiar. Not because they understood each other better, but because all of it had already been on a screen. Ask how they're feeling. You get a quote. Ask if they're okay. Another line, this time from an even older movie. Little by little, there were no real conversations left. Just borrowed words from someone else's script. Real emotions stayed hidden behind a safe layer of humor. The breaking point came during a serious talk, a real problem, a real feeling. And the response was still a jokey quote, like everything was just another scene. They didn't divorce because of movies. They divorced because they were living with someone who never once wanted to say their own true thoughts out loud. Story 13, divorce. Because the pet's birthday was treated better than a human's. The pet's birthday was basically a national event. A custom cake, candles, carefully wrapped gifts, a full photo album posted online with a caption longer than their wedding vows. The spouse's birthday, meanwhile, was, yeah, we can eat whatever tonight. No cake, no candles, not even a photo. Just a very tired nod. At first, everyone laughed it off. It's just an animal. But a strange feeling started to creep in. The pet's schedule was remembered down to the minute. The human's plans were pushed to whenever there's time. The breaking point came in a very quiet moment. Sitting there looking at a perfect birthday photo of the pet and realizing they had never once been treated like that. They didn't divorce because of the pet. They divorced because they didn't want to keep ranking behind an animal on love's priority list. Story 14, divorce because they were forced to do TikTok trends. At first, it sounded harmless. It's just for fun. A short dance, a 15-second video. Laugh it off and move on. But those 15 seconds turned into 30 minutes, then an hour. Record again, again. That wasn't on beat. Do it again, closer to the original. The body got tired. The pressure got worse. The embarrassment hit when the camera came out in public. The moment you realize you're performing for strangers you never agreed to meet. But the same line kept coming back, it's just TikTok. The breaking point came when the video was posted after they had clearly said no. No second check, no permission. Just a tap on the screen. They didn't divorce because of TikTok. They divorced because personal boundaries were ignored so many times they couldn't even remember where those boundaries used to be. Story 15, divorce. Because the pet slept in the bed. At first, it was just a small exception. Let it sleep with us for one night. Very cute, very warm, very temporary. But one night quickly became every night. The pet slowly claimed the center of the bed, stretching out like it owned the place. The humans got pushed to the edges, curled up like refugees asking for asylum. Privacy disappeared. Accidental touches were replaced by fur claws and loud breathing. The bed used to be a place for rest and connection. Now it was a silent battlefield. The breaking point came in a tiny but very real moment when one person woke up half off the bed and suddenly realized they were competing for sleeping space with a four-legged creature. They didn't divorce because of the pet. They divorced because when the bed no longer has room for two people, the relationship doesn't either. Story 16. Divorce. Because a magic 8-ball made every decision. At first, it was just a joke. A plastic ball. You shake it. It answers harmless questions. What should we eat tonight? Reply hazy, try again. Laugh, move on, but the joke didn't stop. Slowly, every decision had to go through the ball. Weekend plans, what to buy, whether to take a new job. One person began to feel like a spectator in their own life. The loss of agency came quietly, but steadily. Personal opinions were pushed aside for let's see what the universe says. Every discussion ended with a flick of the wrist. The breaking point came on a tense evening. A serious question was asked. Should we keep this marriage going? The ball was shaken. An answer appeared. They didn't divorce because of the magic 8-ball. They divorced because they didn't want to spend another day living with a toy instead of a thinking human being. Story 17. Divorce. Because every meal became a food blog photo shoot. At first, photographing the food was kind of cute. A quick picture, a nice angle. Hold on, let me post it, then we'll eat. No one thought it was a big deal. Then hold on started lasting longer. The food cooled down while the lights came on, the angle changed 5 times, and the plate got rotated again for perfection. No one could eat first. No one could touch anything. The meal wasn't for enjoying anymore. It was for performing. Little by little, every moment got delayed because it had to be posted. Morning coffee had to wait for good lighting. Lunch had to wait for the right filter. Conversation had to pause because the caption wasn't ready yet. The breaking point came during an anniversary dinner. Candles were lit. The vibe was perfect. And then the photo light switched on cold and harsh cutting straight through a real moment. They didn't divorce because of food. They divorced because they realized their moments kept getting stolen in exchange for a few likes. Story 18. Divorce. Because of a coupon obsession and extreme saving. At first, coupon hunting sounded reasonable. It saves money. A discounted dinner, a buy one, get one gift. Who wouldn't like that? But slowly, everything needed a percentage. Dates turned into math problems. Restaurants were chosen not for romance, but for the best promo code. Flowers were bought on sale. Birthday gifts came with receipts to prove they were a good deal. Romance disappeared between calculations. A compliment got replaced with, "This was really cheap." A special night ended with price comparisons. The breaking point came when one person realized their love was being converted into percentages, reward points, and refund policies. No surprises, no feelings. They didn't divorce because they wanted to spend wildly. They divorced because they were great at saving money, but slowly made the emotions that should have been nurtured every day completely poor. Story 19. Divorce. Because of speaking with a British accent after watching The Crown. At first it was pretty funny. A slight accent. A playful darling. After watching The Crown, who doesn't want to sound royal at least once, but then once kept going. The British accent showed up at breakfast while asking for milk and during very serious arguments about taking out the trash. There was no off switch, no real voice anymore. Little by little, one person started to feel like a stranger in their own home. Every sentence sounded like living with someone stuck deep in character. Intimate moments turned awkward, like rehearsing a scene no one asked for. The breaking point came when one person suddenly realized they could no longer recognize the voice of the person they married. Only a practice copy rehearsed every night. They didn't divorce because of a TV show. They divorced because they were living with a fake version of someone and could no longer find the real person behind the voice. Story 20. Divorce. Because of a conspiracy theory obsession. At first, it was just a few curious questions. Doesn't this news seem a little weird? Then came the videos, then the podcasts. And before long, everything in life had a conspiracy behind it. News was no longer just news. Neighbors were no longer just neighbors. And pigeons somehow became flying surveillance devices. Every conversation at home turned into a world decoding session. Nothing was accidental. No one was innocent. Little by little, they stopped living in the same reality. One person wanted to talk about weekend plans. The other wanted to talk about the truth they don't want you to know. Suspicion filled the house. The breaking point came when irrational fear started making every decision: where to go, who to meet, what to believe. Life became controlled by endless theories. They didn't divorce because of curiosity. They divorced because they couldn't keep living in an imagined world where peace no longer had a place. Story 21, Divorce, because of constant air guitar. At first, it was a harmless hobby. An imaginary solo in the living room. A head nod to the beat. Pretty fun, pretty cute. But then the invisible guitar was never put down. In the kitchen, in the car, in the middle of serious conversations. Every song became an invitation to perform. Shared spaces slowly turned into an unwilling stage. Moments that needed silence kept getting interrupted. A tense discussion. An important call. A minute that needed quiet. And then, the solo appeared completely unrequested. The breaking point came when a very serious, very real moment was turned into a silent but overly passionate performance. No one was laughing anymore, just exhaustion. They didn't divorce because of music. They divorced because it felt like living inside a never-ending show where there was no room left for silence or listening. Story 22, Divorce, because of an as-seen on TV addiction. At first, it was just one small item, a life-changing kitchen gadget. Then another one only available on TV. It sounded convincing, very necessary, according to the ads. But slowly, the house started filling up with things no one remembered how to use. Cutters, pressers, machines designed to clean things that were never dirty. Money disappeared. Living space shrank. Every corner had a box. Every box promised a better life that never arrived. No one used them, but no one was allowed to throw them away. What if we need it someday? That line played on repeat like a commercial rerun. The breaking point came when the living room stopped being a living room and became a warehouse for shopping dreams. Even walking required navigation. They didn't divorce because of shopping. They divorced because they realized they were living inside a never-ending commercial, not a home anymore. Story 23, Divorce. Because there were too many cats in the house. At first there was just one cat. Very cute. Then one more so it wouldn't be lonely. Then another because it was too sad not to. And at some point no one remembers exactly when counting cats became complicated. The house slowly filled with smell. Fur showed up in places fur should never exist. Midnight noises became the usual soundtrack. The couch stopped being a couch. The dining table stopped being a table. Every surface belonged to a cat. The humans started living like tenants in their own home. Every movement required permission granted or denied by a few pairs of judging pupils. The breaking point came when one person realized they no longer had any say over their own living space. Everything revolved around a growing cat army. They didn't divorce because they hated cats. They divorced because love got swallowed by excess, and there was no room left for humans in that house anymore. Story 24, Divorce. Because they replaced all the furniture with inflatable ones. At first, the idea sounded fun. It's playful. It's different. An inflatable couch, inflatable chairs, even an inflatable table. The whole house looked like a pool party accidentally thrown in the living room. But the fun deflated quickly. Everything squeaked with every movement. Sitting down meant sliding. Standing up meant wobbling. Not safe, not comfortable. Just the sound of rubber rubbing against rubber in the middle of the night. The breaking point came literally when the inflatable bed started leaking while they were sleeping. That long hiss filled the darkness, followed by both of them collapsing onto the floor, along with the rest of the dream. The next morning, no one was laughing anymore. They didn't divorce because of furniture. They divorced because they realized their marriage had become just as fragile, noisy, and lacking support as the inflatable mess they were living on every day. Story 25: Divorce. Because a horoscope app ran their life. At first it was just for fun. Venus is good for relationships today. Sounds kinda cute. Who isn't a little curious about the universe? But soon every decision had to go through the app. What to eat depended on the stars. Where to go depended on notifications. Contracts couldn't be signed because Mercury was in retrograde. Arguments were pointless because the universe already said so. Little by little, one person lost the right to have an opinion. Not because they were wrong, but because their sign didn't align. Every conversation ended with eyes on a screen, not on each other. Disagreeing with the app was treated like arguing with fate itself. The breaking point came when their entire life was controlled by a few vague lines sent every morning. Where to go, who to meet, how to love, all decided by an astrology algorithm. They didn't divorce because of zodiac signs. They divorced because they didn't want to live under an artificial destiny where a real human voice no longer mattered. Story 26: Divorce. Because of forced 5 a.m. yoga. The alarm went off at 5 a.m., consistent like a curse. It was still dark. The brain was still asleep. But the yoga mat was already laid out, waiting for enlightenment. At first, there was an effort to cooperate. It's good for your health. You'll get used to it. They didn't. There was only sleep deprivation, sore muscles, and a forced smile before the sun even showed up. There was no option to say no. Skipping one session meant guilt. Sleeping 10 extra minutes was labeled a lack of spiritual discipline. Every morning began with a deep breath and swallowing irritation. The breaking point came on a very quiet morning. No arguing. Just one person opening their eyes and realizing the first feeling of the day wasn't peace, but resentment. They didn't divorce because of yoga. They divorced because enlightenment can't save a marriage built on coercion. Story 27: Divorce. Because they refused to take selfies together. The camera roll on the phone told a very clear story. Same person, same face, same smile, just missing the other half of the relationship. Every trip, every pretty moment got captured. But it was always solo photos. I don't like taking pictures. I'm not comfortable on camera. At first, that sounded reasonable. Then it started to sound like avoidance. A weird feeling crept in, like you were being hidden. Not shown, not posted, not allowed to stand next to them in the moments that mattered. The breaking point came in a very direct conversation. You don't want to be seen with me. No yelling, no dancing around it. Just one sentence, crystal clear. They didn't divorce because of a photo. They divorced because they realized the most painful part wasn't missing pictures. It was missing each other's presence in the other person's life. Story 28. Divorce because of raising chickens in a suburban neighborhood. At first, the idea sounded wholesome. Fresh eggs every morning. Living green. A little farmhouse vibe in a quiet suburban area. A few chickens in the backyard, how bad could it be? Then the smell showed up. Then the noise. No schedule. No respect for time. Just chicken vibes. Early mornings. Weekends. Right when someone was trying to steal 10 extra minutes of sleep. The neighbors started complaining. The HOA sent emails. Perfectly trimmed lawns became the backdrop for very long arguments. The backyard stopped being a place to relax and turned into a place to constantly apologize. The breaking point came when one person realized their house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a small farm dropped into the wrong address, stuck between white fences and neighborhood rules. They didn't divorce because they hated eggs. They divorced because one person's farm dream ended up wrecking the shared life they were supposed to have together. Story 29. Divorce because of raising a snake and insisting it sleep in the bed. At first, it was just a slightly unusual personal hobby. A snake in a glass tank, controlled, lidded. Don't worry, it's harmless. But then the tank wasn't enough anymore. The snake was taken out to get used to people. And then came a suggestion, said very calmly, let it sleep with us so it stays warm. Calm for the person saying it. Not calm at all for the person hearing it. From that point on, every night became a stress test. Every movement in the dark felt suspicious. Every accidental touch sent the heart racing faster than necessary. Sleep turned into night watch duty. The breaking point came when the sense of safety disappeared completely. Not because the snake attacked, but because the fear never turned off. They didn't divorce because they hated pets. They divorced because love can't live alongside fear, especially when that fear is lying right there in the bed. Story 30: Divorce. Because they refused to watch The Bachelor together. For some people, The Bachelor isn't just a TV show, it's a ritual. Monday night, snacks, lively commentary about roses and other people's bad decisions. But for the other person, it was just another show. There was always a reason to avoid it. Work, scrolling on the phone, going somewhere else. They never sat down to watch together, not even once. Slowly, a feeling of being dismissed crept in. Not because of the show, but because a small world they loved was never shared. Every invitation got declined very gently, very politely, and very consistently. The breaking point came when one person realized they were always watching alone. Not because they were single, but because the other person never stepped into that space. They didn't divorce because of a TV show. They divorced because they understood that connection isn't about the content. It's about being willing to sit down and share each other's worlds. Story 31: Divorce. Because they only spoke in song lyrics. At first, it felt romantic. A lyric at the perfect moment. A chorus standing in for I love you. It felt like living inside a soft musical movie. But then song lyrics started replacing every real answer. Ask how they're feeling, get a lyric. Try to have a serious conversation, get a familiar line from a song. Every argument turned into an unwanted playlist. Slowly, no one said what they actually thought anymore. Real emotions hid behind pre-written melodies. No one spoke plainly. No one truly listened. The breaking point came when an important argument ended with a chorus sung perfectly on beat, but completely wrong for the moment. There was nothing left to say. No way left to understand each other. They didn't divorce because of music. They divorced because they realized lyrics can sound beautiful, but they can never replace real words between two people trying to live a real life together. After looking back at all 31 stories, one thing becomes pretty clear: not everyone involved was a bad person. Most of them were just people who finally couldn't take it anymore. Very small things, very stupid things. But repeat them long enough, and they gain an impressive amount of destructive power. And if we're being honest, every one of us has been that annoying person in someone else's life, at least once. Just not annoying enough to end up in divorce court. So now it's your turn. Have you ever heard or personally experienced a breakup reason so absurd that looking back all you can do is shake your head? Share it in the comments. No judgment. Just stories for fun. And if you enjoy this kind of storytelling, funny but very human, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because as long as people keep living together, there will always be more stories to tell.